We've identified 3 different kinds of currents that can cause couples to drift. Now, sometimes they're invisible, just like ocean currents, but they can be very powerful.
And it's you and me, babe, whatever comes. Knowing bigger hands are holding us, and the greatest days are ahead of us. Growing in love, learning to be a better us.
Hi there, welcome to A Better Us, and welcome to our home.
Okay, so when you first start out in marriage, the two of you are close. You're closer than close. But then as life goes on, something changes.
You get busy, you get stressed, and your focus is no longer on this most important relationship.
Maybe you've been there.
Maybe you are there.
It just feels like you're drifting apart. We've been there. And it's funny how you don't even realize it's happening.
This is such a common issue that we've made it our focus for today's entire show.
Yeah, coming up, relationship experts Neil and Sharol Josephson help us identify and push against the typical currents that cause couples to drift apart.
And in today's Ask the Doctors segment, psychologist Drs. Leslie Parrott reveal the 3 essential ingredients of romantic love.
Which can also help us fight against the drift factor.
Right. So there's a lot to talk about with our kitchen couples, CFL football hero Mike Pinball Clemens and his wife Diane, along with recording artist Dan McCauley and his wife Danielle.
This is going to be good, so stay with us.
The first bump in divorce statistics in Canada is around year 4, and the most common reason given is our differences. The next big bump in divorce is somewhere in the year 20, 25, and couples at this stage usually say we've just grown apart. We've lost our emotional connection. They've drifted. And it's this drift factor that we want to talk about for a few minutes.
First of all, let's acknowledge that drift is just the natural inclination in relationships. We don't naturally, without effort, stay together.
Right.
We drift apart. And we hear this from couples all across Canada. So we've identified 3 different kinds of currents that can cause couples to drift. Now, sometimes they're invisible, just like ocean currents, but they can be very powerful.
And we need to be aware of them, just like those riptides in the ocean. We need to know these currents, okay? The first one's this, cultural currents. There are messages in our culture everywhere that are really pretty pessimistic about marriage, aren't they? And it's easy to get sucked into that current. For example, it's commonly accepted, and the word on the street is that the divorce rate in Canada is 50%, that half the marriages end in divorce, and it discourages a lot of people. It's also not true. The reality, according to Statistics Canada, is that first marriages end in divorce about 30% of the time. Now that means 70% of first marriages go the distance. Man, that sets a different tone, doesn't it?
Entirely.
Yeah.
And then there are internal currents, and these are the things that go on inside our heads. You know, those internal tapes. We've learned that they generally come from one of 2 places. Our brokenness, and let's be honest, if we've been on the planet longer than 5 minutes, we're all a little bit broken, and our selfishness. And that's just wired into us as human beings from birth. But if you think we grow out of it as adults, ask yourself this question. If someone hands you a group photograph with you in it, who's the first face you look for? You betcha. We are inherently self-focused, and we're all a little banged up as human beings, and these things can cause drift.
And then there are those external currents. These are the things that happen largely outside our control, but they have a huge impact on us and our marriage. They can cause really big time drift. Maybe somebody gets sick, or somebody loses a job, or there's a move. And they can be good things. You have another baby, or there's a promotion. But all of a sudden life changes from the outside and it affects you. Busyness is an external current that causes a lot of people today to drift apart. And it certainly was a fact in our lives. We were about 18 or 19 years into our marriage, and we had to confront the fact that we had drifted way far apart.
Yeah, for a while there. We were like roommates living in the same house, and we discerned that we had gotten so busy in our parenting and our careers and our other activities, most of which were good. We were part of a church plant that was meeting in our home. We were volunteering in the community. We were super involved in our kids' sports and in their lives. But we had quit the shared activities that we enjoyed as a couple, and that had drawn us together in the first place, and there was less conversation, there was less sex, there was less kindness. We just started to take each other for granted. We did find our way back with God's help, but it started by getting honest about the currents that were at play, pulling us apart.
And we're going to talk in the second segment about 2 things we've learned to help deal with the drift. But first, here's a question. What are the currents in your marriage or the marriages around you that might be causing drift?
Okay, Neil and Sharol do a great job there of explaining this whole idea of drift. Well, we're here in the kitchen with Mike and Diane Clemens, Dan and Danielle McCauley, and our kitchen couples.
Yes, love it, love it.
And they're all sitting pretty close together, so not too much drift happening right there. But it's so true, we all deal with drift in one way or another. And he closed that segment with that question, and maybe you kind of answered it in your own mind already. What are the currents around us that might be causing drift?
I know with us, and this is going back a few years, we'd been married maybe, I'm thinking like 14, 15 years. We were so busy. Ron was commuting every day into Crossroads 3.5 hours on the road. I was home.
Both ways, yeah.
Both ways. I was at home.
I mean, not both ways, I mean, total, combined.
Okay. I was at home with the kids, plus I babysat
Yeah.
other people's kids in our home. And so I was exhausted all day. You know, he left the house at 5:30 in the morning. My first child showed up at 6:15 in the morning. He wouldn't get home until right before supper. And then we had 3 kids that I had, we had to get. So anyway, it was exhausting. We were just so busy, so tired that, like Sharol said, we just became roommates. We just had a system down. We do it well because we know how to make the household not fall apart. And we have the schedules that we keep our schedules. And before you knew it, we were just kind of like roommates going through the motions. And I'll never forget one Valentine's Day. Ron gave me a Valentine's card, and he wrote right in the card, he said, "You really are my treasure." And then after that, he started calling me his treasure. That became his nickname for me.
I did that?
Is treasure. And that was what turned the tide for us, is that he recognized, the value that I had in his life. And when I saw that he really valued and cherished me, that turned my heart towards him. And that kind of helped us kind of come back together again.
That's cool. Yeah, that's where we are right now, kind of. Young kids, we're busy, we're at the height of working on our career. We work from home, our own business, so we could work all night long. The work doesn't go away. And so if we're not intentional to carve that time out, we could just give each other our leftovers. And that's not fair, because we love each other unconditionally doesn't mean, well, he's going to be there, so I'll just, he'll be there tomorrow. That's not the way we need to think. We need to give them our best, just like we did at the beginning,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that they said we never end up in the same place. Like we never drift in the same direction. It's always like I was thinking of I love movies. I was thinking of Jaws 2, and after
Wait a second.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
I'm gonna get wait a second.
Somewhere.
I'm going somewhere. After the kids towards the end, they go out on their sailboats together, and Jaws attacks them and attacks several of the boats. And what do they do? They're out drifting in the ocean. They tie those boats together. They bring them all together and they rope them together so they're like one giant boat. Because unless you're intentional about tying yourselves together, the tendency is the ocean currents will take them far and far away. See, I brought it around.
Okay.
We've got to stay tied together.
I know, right? You brought that rope.
It's another rope thing. Yes.
I like that.
Okay, I like that though, because when you're tied together, when you're close together, it's really hard for those ocean currents or major, huge sharks in the ocean to get a hold of you, that you can actually survive.
I think we all go through those seasons where we have those moments, right? Business of life, kids, everything, because we've had our times as well. And I think right now we're probably going through a little bit of that now because I've started a new business, and we're both just busy, right? We have a lot on our plates. But you always have to remember, if you don't make that time for one another, you have to absolutely carve out time to spend, or it won't happen, and you will continue to drift apart. But if you make an effort to carve out just a few minutes, even if it's just a few minutes a day, just to recognize each other, right?
Yeah.
Then it makes all that even better.
So
right?
practically speaking, how do you do that? What would be some examples?
Well, maybe we can kind of try to give a few current busters, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about those currents. So a couple of current busters. So the first is actually dynamite, TNT. That's time, and touch, right? Those are your anchors, right? That is the anchor. Time and touch. And then there's the ocean view room. Now, when you're in the ocean view room, right, you don't feel the current as much as you do when you're down low, right? Yeah. So what that is if we spend time with that time and touch, and then we make sure that we encourage our partner, right? We take the time to elevate the ocean view. I mean, it's up there, and you see it's above the water. It's not down where it's rough. You don't feel as much. And if we take time in our relationship, right, to encourage and inspire and to build, that's to help her in her business, not just to say, wow, you're busy, how can I help you, right? How can I be involved? How can we help to grow together? And then finally, every once in a while, to get over that current, we need a hoverboard, right? We just got to ride right on top of that, right? And, so when we talk about that hoverboard, it is planning our future together, right? It's hard to drift apart if we're planning our life together. If we're looking, we're actively looking together to this is where we're going, right? So it's time and touch, right? It is also then, making sure that we encourage each other, right? If we're constantly encouraging each other and building each other up, and then further to that, if we're thinking about a future together, it makes it a little bit more difficult to drift.
I find you don't even need loads of time. Sometimes it's just a moment.
Just a few moments.
When I'm going and the day is hectic and I just need you. And if it's just one moment and it's a breath of fresh air, okay, I can move on, and I know we've got each other.
That
one
just,
that's
and you're like, just breathe, and
yes.
it's like, okay, I'm good.
It gets you through the rest of the day.
That's all I needed.
That's it. Yeah.
So it's good to hear that we all go through this kind of thing. We have to fight against that drift because it's common to everyone, common to those watching. Probably maybe you're in a drift season right now. You're feeling, how did we get this far apart? And you're not sure. Maybe some insights you've been getting from Neil and Sharol or from the discussion around the table will help. But we're going to go back in a moment. Neil and Sharol are going to give us some practical tips also to fight against these drifting things. So stay with us.
I heard it said once that strangers can become best friends just as easily as best friends can become strangers. It's just, you go apart.
Hi, we hope you're enjoying the show.
Our vision at A Better Us is to see every marriage become a loving union that creates a safe family haven, building a legacy of hope for future generations.
That's why we feel it's so important to invest in marriage relationships through producing a new episode of A Better Us every week.
Absolutely. If you feel as we do that marriages are worth investing in, then please consider joining us as a member of A Better Us with a monthly donation of $25.
You'll be making a big difference in lives and families, and we'll send you 2 of our special mugs, the mugs that you see our kitchen couples using each program.
Absolutely. And be sure to send us your mugshot selfie, and we'll post it on our Facebook page and on our website.
Simply visit abetterus.tv and click donate to set up your automatic monthly giving. God bless you, and thank you so much for making this program possible and helping us strengthen marriages.
So we can all become a better us.
So how do we deal with drift? 2 quick suggestions. First of all, recognize the internal tapes that are running in our heads, our own wounds, and get some help. Now, it might be that the problems in our marriage aren't really about the marriage at all. They're part of the past that we've dragged into our marriage. Our friends Les and Leslie Parrott often say a marriage is only as healthy as the least healthy person in it. So let's go after our individual health and wholeness. If we've got wounds from our family of origin, if we've got abuse or betrayal in our past, if pornography is part of our story, proactively seek out a third party, get some help, go after these things. Otherwise, we're putting a glass ceiling on our marriage. We can never get where we want to go.
Secondly, schedule some time together to prevent drift. Look, we can't grow together if we never are together. So here's a formula we like. Take 15 minutes a day for non-logistical conversation just to be together. We have some friends who carved out the time this way. They put a coffee maker in their room so they could have coffee without going down to the kitchen and waking up the kids. So they both woke up to the smell of coffee and had 15 minutes together, right?
A win-win.
However you do it, get some time together every day. Then take half a day a week, 1 day a month, and 1 weekend a year. Go away just to deepen your marriage. Now, if you don't like that formula, come up with your own. But know this, if you don't take the initiative, if you don't schedule that time, if you don't fight that current of busyness, you will drift. And we'll never drift to the same place. When you drift, you always end up apart.
So 39 years in, we love being married. We love what we have. But we might not have made it if we hadn't fought back against the currents, against the drift, and with God's help found each other again. So what are you doing to deal with drift in your lives, to become a better us?
We are back in the kitchen with Mike and Diane, Dan and Danielle, and we're getting challenged there by Neil and Sharol about dealing with drift and asking some hard questions.
I love the fact that they say we all deal with drift. You know, it's not like some marriages are so bad they deal with drift and some are so good they never do. No, we all do, because
It's human nature.
life sets in and it's going to happen. So the question is, how do we deal with it?
Well, I thought about a friend of ours who just got one of these swim spas. You ever seen it? It's like a huge hot tub, and then at one end you can set a current, and you could just turn it up really hard, and you got to swim against the current, and you got to go, and it's a great exercise. Yeah, it's great for that, but you got to work hard. Like it takes focused effort, and if you just all of a sudden relax, it pushes you over your way back. And so it's kind of, you know, like in marriage, you know, unless you're working at it, you're just gonna, the natural humanness is to just drift away or drift apart and drift apart. So it's just gonna happen.
You know, this whole concept I hear though of falling out of love drives me crazy, right? And so yes, that is, you know, drift is, you know, it is real, right? That's why we say, man, the kids, I can't believe your kids are so big. I mean, because time does pass, time continues to move, right? It is a constant, right? But when we talk about falling out of love, right, we don't fall out of love. We actually we've taken away our commitment, right? So it's a definitive choice that we make. And I didn't find out one day I woke up and I didn't love her anymore. No, I took away my commitment to that, right? So we are in marriage, right? We are supposed to be committed, and so just really want to encourage us to understand that if when we say we fell out of love, it means that we checked out sometime previous to that, right? So we weren't doing the things that people who love each other do, right? And we can still do those things. That's why arranged marriages are more successful, right, than the normal marriage that we know of in our culture.
That's interesting.
Right?
Why?
Because we can
Because
we can be committed to we can love anybody. You can choose to love anyone, and the choice, once you make that decision, right, your feelings follow. Feelings are not supposed to precede the commitment. The idea is I commit to you, the feelings follow, and you can love any human being, right? You hear about people like, how could they be with that person? Well, if you commit to it, you can love. I truly believe you can love anybody on the face of the earth, but it takes the commitment first.
And your commitment level actually affects then your priorities that you put in place. Like what are those things that could, as the illustration used earlier with the Jaws, is tie the boats together. What are the commitments and what's the priorities that will actually tie those boats together so that you're not going to drift apart?
We've said some of them, right? Time, and touch, and all those kinds of things would be starter places for them.
Yeah.
And to remember that your priorities are, what are they? They're God, your spouse, then your children, and then everything else. Not to have any one of those supersede the other. That's not supposed to. And if we just keep those in the front of our minds, we'll know that's what we need to keep focusing our energies into first.
So Neil and Sharol give some pretty practical steps there toward the end about that priority and the commitment. You know, just 15 minutes a day. Now that doesn't seem like too much. Maybe for a guy it might sound like a lot. For a woman it like is a little, but meet in the middle.
Yeah.
15 minutes a day, and then what do you say? Half a day a week,
week?
at least to do like a date type of a thing.
date
So
night.
at least getting away.
Yeah.
And then what do you say?
Once a month,
A day a
and then
month,
a year.
and then like a weekend a year
yeah.
at least,
Yeah.
and that's
That's
kind
something
of the
to shoot
commitment.
for.
It is, because when you spend those few moments together, it gets to a point where you're like, oh, I need more. So then you add on more time. And it's like, oh, I need more. Then you add on more time. So you want to have that time together. And that's what those few moments do. They just reel you in just a little bit closer every time, right?
Because without them, you get used to being apart.
That's right.
You get used to doing your own thing. You get used to just choosing to watch whatever TV show you want
Yeah.
instead of making the compromise
Yeah.
that is required to
Right.
watch
Right?
HGTV or whatever. Just
CSI.
saying, maybe in theory.
Or these right here, this day and age, we have our devices, and it's hard to remember what we look like when we're always staring at our screens. You know, we have to be careful to put those down and be with each other, because I heard it said once that strangers can become best friends just as easily as best friends can become strangers. It's just
That's
we
good.
go apart.
Because if we do allow the drift to happen, then we find our natural inclination towards selfishness comes right in. And it just pulls us apart even further, because then it's all about me. It's all about, what do I want to do? What TV show do I want to watch? And because I'm really not part of your world anymore, and I'm going this direction. And but if we just push selfishness away and draw towards each other, then it becomes easier to want to be with them, like you said.
Yeah, and there's a study that says that right now in the U.S., marriages are more challenging than any other time in history. Right now, today. So we have to be really careful, right?
And that's, sorry, I was going to say that's probably because of all the distractions out there today
That's it.
that we didn't have years ago.
These things.
Like those things,
Like the
and like
computer and the cell
yeah,
phone
like
and all of that.
1,000 channels on TV, and
The new shiny ornament always,
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
gets our attention.
That's
And that's why I think making your spouse a part of your future, a part of your tomorrow, your spouse and your family a part of your tomorrow, planning together and seeing out into
Common
the future,
goals.
having those common goals are essential to getting you past some of those little roadblocks from day to day.
There's that Bible verse, where your treasure is, your heart will be. When you said treasure, your heart follows whatever you're putting your time and your
Your
investment
investment.
in. That's where your heart is going to follow. And so make sure it's your
And that's-
right place.
And that's the choice thing you were saying. You choose to make the investment there, choose to invest in that person. Your heart naturally goes there. That's why the feelings follow the actions. Yes.
I love how you said investment together. It was right on time.
Did we say it?
That shows investment, right?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
well, and then taking one step above all of that is our investment in our relationship with God, because that, as we say, that should be the number one priority. And as we spend time with Him, then we don't drift apart from that relationship. And then we know that the closer each spouse is to God, the closer they'll be to each other. So that's really a foundational thing to fight drift with, is our relationship with God.
It's kind of the goal thing, like you're saying, like having the common, you're not going to drift in different directions if you both have the same goal.
Right.
And if that same goal is keeping your eyes on Jesus,
Yeah.
then you're both heading in that direction. There's not opportunity to go that way and to go that way.
But that takes work as well.
Yes.
That's just a deliberate, intentional decision you make every day to draw closer to God. And then you get closer to your spouse.
Okay, well, this has been good stuff, everyone. Thanks so much. All right, well, don't drift away yet, because there is more to come.
You know, for the longest time, social scientists have left explanations of romantic love to poets, lyricists, musicians.
Right.
You know, it was too mushy to study as a scholar, right? That all changed about 15 years ago at Yale University, when a fellow named Robert Sternberg came along, did this massive study on romantic love, and discovered there's three essential ingredients. He calls this the triangular theory of love, which sounds like a real sleeper, but it's super practical.
Right.
On one side of the triangle, you can write the word passion.
Right, that's the biological side of love.
That's that part of love that kind of got the two of you together in the first place.
Right, the chemistry.
Yeah, somebody said that passion, though a bad regulator, is a good spring. In other words, it's really good at getting love going, not so good at keeping love going.
Yeah, on the other side of the triangle, intimacy. This is the emotional side of love. It's that part that makes you feel at home and safe with somebody and like you really get each other.
Right, that you get me and I get you. We're reading off the same sheet of music here. And that's, like you said, the emotional side.
Right.
And then on the base of the triangle is the word commitment.
Yes.
Passion, intimacy, and commitment. You can think of these as the hot, warm, and cold ingredients of love. Commitment is that capacity to say, in spite of all the uncertainty in my life, in spite of all these things I can't quite pin down, I'm going to make one thing rock solid.
Right.
And that's my relationship with you. Does that come from your hormones? Your emotions? No, that comes from your will. This is the willful side of love.
Right.
So, passion, intimacy, and commitment. Those are the three essential ingredients of romantic love.
Hey friends, Ron and Ann here. We're so glad you're with us at A Better Us, and we pray your marriage is blessed as you take this in.
Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and enjoy this video.
Today's program has been one of my favorites because we've talked candidly about something we all face in marriage, drifting apart.
Right. And it's not something we do on purpose, it just naturally happens in the busyness of life, unless we're intentional about fighting against it. So Neil and Sharol helped us identify some of these currents in our lives that can cause drift to happen, both external and internal currents.
Like that internal inclination we all have towards selfishness. Unless we are deliberately working towards staying close, our natural tendency is to stay selfish.
Or maybe for you, it's those external currents, whether it's work, the kids, your friends. Maybe it's time to stop and readjust your focus and put a focused effort into your marriage.
Working on your marriage really is a deliberate daily decision. And so is working on your relationship with God, which is actually your most important relationship.
Right. If you would like to know more about a personal connection with God or would like prayer for your marriage, our prayer line is available 24/7. It's on the screen. Just give us a call.
Thanks again for stopping by. And remember, with God, there is always hope to become a better us.
Friends, we really hope you're enjoying the marriage conversations here with A Better Us on our YouTube channel.
We have hundreds of more helpful marriage videos designed to give you hope and tools to make your marriage better.
You can see just a few options we think you might like here and here.
Enjoy! Oh, and make sure you subscribe by clicking here so you don't miss out on all the great marriage help we have coming your way soon.